our nation, the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. That is America. And of course, we're coming to you live tonight from the jeweled cities of the Arklatex, Shreveport and Bossier City, my hometown. Been up in Wilmington, North Carolina, and I think it's still going to be there long enough for us to go on air, Jay, next week. Next week, the 17th, we're going to start doing some test shows up there in Wilmington, North Carolina. Folks, they're a lot like we are right here. The politics, the makeup of the place is all the same. Of course, a little bit north of there, you have Chapel Hill and all that, which is a haven for, we're going to talk a little bit about the haven for what Chapel Hill and places like that are about. But yes, we have laid a pretty good foundation for groundwork to move forward, to plant our flag there in Wilmington, North Carolina, and then move up north and then south on the eastern seaboard, so that CL Bryant Show will eventually make its way into Florida and into New York City. Get a rope. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being there and making our show just as popular as it can be. And we certainly hope to become more popular throughout our nation. Folks, I have, talking to people on the road like I do and talking to people inside airports and, you know, wherever I run into folks to talk to, I ask a question, of course, about, you know, how you feeling about this 2016 presidential election. I get a chance a lot to talk to Republicans, and in airports, just striking up regular conversation. I talking to somebody about, hey, you know, they have televisions running there, and I find the opportunity to say, hey, what do you think about this election cycle? Don't let them know how I feel either way or the other, because, of course, you know I am a black conservative, black Republican. You know that, but they don't when I ask the question. It's very interesting how different people will answer that question. And then it's also interesting to watch their expressions shift when I start giving them my opinion, my pointed opinion on, and my take on this presidential election. But this is the conclusion that I'm coming to, because I'm seeing something happening here that it has been echoed, and I would have talked about this last night, and of course I would have been talking about it before Dr. Levin. Most of the things that I am able to share, I get it in before Dr. Levin gets on. But last night I would have shared this night. I think Dr. Levin may have touched on this, but not in the way that I'm going to do it. It's amazing to me that the Bushes, Barbara Bush, Jeb, the Bushes, 41 and 43, how they have, you know, embraced their foster son, Bill Clinton, and his wife, Hillary, and how they have shut the doors to the party that they once dominated. It's amazing to see how they did that. And then I wasn't here last night to give any type of commentary on how I think Mike Pence held serve there on that debate. He did very, very well, as we knew he would. And that's great. That's fantastic. But then you look at the Paul Ryans and the John Boehners, the Mitch McConnells of the Republican Party, and you have to understand that none of these people, the Bushes, the Boehners, the Ryans, or none of these people are on that Trump train. They are, if you ask them, but they're not on their own volition. They won't tell you. They are if you ask them, and you will assume that they are because they're wearing the same jersey. But sometimes, hey, you know, the game may be fixed. It may be rigged like Donald Trump says it is. I'm going to think that may be true. And I think there's some foolishness going on here, because I'm running into people who are buying into that game that the Bushes, the Paul Ryans, the Boehners are playing. And that is, let Hillary win this time out. I say no. I say don't do it. Because there may not be a next time for us to fight. It may not be another battleground for us to fight on. We have to recover too much ground if she gets 4 years to complete the experiment of fundamentally changing America that President Obama started. And she sure will do it. But their logic and their philosophy is let her win this time around and then run Mike Pence against her in 2020. But now, if you have the 20 dwarfs or 17 dwarfs back on that debate stage in the Republican primary in 2020, you're going to get the same result. Chaos. And if you seed this election, if you actively tell other Republicans, other conservatives, or conservatives, because I'm not too sure that they can, the names that I've called can wear that moniker, to stay home, you have to question, what does that make them? I'll be back. I'm CL. CL. Yes, I was. Born in the USA, American all the way and proud of it. But there is an attack on our American masculinity. It's an attack on who we are. And you know what? Let me share this with you. This is what I'm seeing also, folks. In my travels, I'm seeing it more and more and more. And Duke University is proving my point. There's an attack on American masculinity. One of the things, listen to me, one of the things I think is threatening to the progressive liberal left is the fact that Trump does represent a certain masculine aspect of America that too many of us have forgotten exist. And the rest, too many of the rest, would like to alter. When we talk about somebody who speaks as frankly as he does, in the way that he does, not the flowery words that you hear from regular politicians, not the politically correct stance says that too many politically correct politicians take, he becomes a threat to the fundamental change. Because, folks, listen, the fundamental change not only means the change in the way the government is running, which that is already taken place, but they also want to fundamentally change the way gender and the way thought about gender and all of that takes place. And you cannot have a leader who is a man. I mean a John Wayne kind of man. You can't have a leader who's a John Shaft kind of man. You can't have that kind of leader. He has to be somebody who is compromised as far as the way he looks at the essence of our humanity. Duke University study. You think I'm kidding you? There is a Duke University study that is about to be underway that is entitled Toxic Masculinity and How and Why It Should Be, men get this word, neutered. Yeah, toxic masculinity and how and why it should be neutered. And for all of you who may not be familiar with the word neutered, when's the last time you saw a truly masculine dog at the park or at your friend's house? They've all been neutered. And that is what this study is indicating need to take place with the testosterone-driven American male, because his masculinity is what causes the violence in this country. Quote from this syllabus: our goals are to examine the ways of masculinity, the ways masculinity exists on our campus, often in toxic ways, so we can do the work of unlearning violence. We want to explore, dissect, and construct an intersectional understanding of masculinity and maleness, as well as to create destabilized spaces for those with privilege. So now you not only have, listen to me, you not only have folks throwing privilege when it comes to the word white, as far as race is concerned, they are now throwing the word privilege, males, men, red, yellow, black, and white. You are now privileged because you're male. Do you see the fundamental change that's taking place here? Do you see the evolution that is taking place here? Now, there's a question I have to ask you a little bit later on in the show. And that is, who and what do you want as role models for your little boys and little girls? Who do your little boys and little girls run to when they are needing an example of male and female? They're trying to make everything in this country gender neutral. Gender neutral. And in order to do that, they have to vilify the very thing that in fact draw the dividing lines in our humanity. And that is male and female, mommy and daddy, boys and girls. They call masculinity toxic, and it has to be neutered because it lends itself to a certain privilege. Now, take it back to the thought that I was sharing with you a little bit earlier as to why they really don't want a plain-spoken guy who, by the way, whatever you may say about Donald Trump, he's a man's man, I do believe. Now, he may not be the man's the best example of a man for some of the progressive liberals, but he's a man's man. He's the guy that, hey, and ladies, please forgive me when I say this. He's the guy that when we're in the locker room talking, he's the guy you're listening to his stories. Now, I may have just ruined any of you guys going back to the basketball court and then having a pizza after basketball with the guys because they don't want you exposed to Donald Trump. But men are men are men. Boys, the reason I think God gave us the girls is really so we wouldn't kill ourselves, because it would certainly be a Lord of the Flies kind of world if there were not for females. We'd fight all the time. Yeah, we would. It's a part of who we are as men. And God, I believe, balanced it all out, even though sometimes the wars are fought over women. But I think in the civil sense of the word, in our little circles of society, God gave us mothers and sisters and women so that we could exercise sometimes the softer side of ourselves, but that's not because masculinity was toxic. I'll be back in just a minute.
The first thing you do when you get up out of bed is hit that streets a running and try to beat the masses. Go get yourself some cheap sunglasses. Oh yeah.
CL, back with you on this Thursday evening, gateway to the weekend, broadcasting throughout the fruited plains of the greatest nation on the face of the earth, the greatest success story the world has ever known. And the definition of our humanity is at stake here. This is why the election is so important, is because there are certain designs on our society that are in play in this presidential election. Now, a good friend of mine, he's been on the show 3-4 times now, Sean Hannity. I've been on his show a number of times. Can't count the times I've been on with Sean in the last 7 years. But Sean Hannity. But now, I've met Megyn Kelly on several occasions, never been on her show, but I've met Megyn Kelly on several occasions. Very nice woman as far as I can tell and as far as I know. She'd be nicer if she'd have me on the show. But she says that Sean is the only show that Fox has on television now, that Fox has in their network now, Fox News has in their network, that Donald Trump will come on. Well, I can understand why. I can understand why Hillary won't come on her show. Oh, well, Hillary would come on Megyn's show. Definitely would come on Megyn's show, but Hillary won't come on Sean's show. Hillary will not come on Sean Hannity's show. She won't go on O'Reilly, although I think she'd have a joyous time with O'Reilly if you're just listening to me now. I'm just me saying it, because I think Bill has left the building as far as conservatism is concerned and all that kind of thing. I think Hannity is the last conservative host of a talk show on Fox of any huge report. Oh, you have others who are conservatives on the Fox News network, but Hannity, as far as one of the big boats in the water who will not flinch, will not back up, and is relentless in wanting to get the right person elected to the office, is the last one left at Fox News Network. Yes, he is. And I'm not just saying that because he's a good friend of mine, but I'm saying it because he's true. I don't think we'd be that good a friend if, in fact, he were any different. And I don't think we could walk together unless we agreed on that. Now, for her trouble of saying that Sean's show is the only show that Trump will go on, Sean fired back and called her a Hillary lover. Well, it was Megyn who, in fact, fired the first shots at Trump in the first debates. I was there, heard him. I was right there in Cleveland when that happened. And it was a big hoopla about that. And she and Trump had a beer summit or a martini summit or whatever it was. And it appeared that they may have buried the hatchet. She went up to Trump Plaza, and they buried the hatchet there. But anyway, now everybody's crying, well, how come Trump doesn't spread it around? Well, right now, I think he's being very smart about being friendly with those who are friendly. Because even in his own party, or those who are supposed to be in the party, he is finding people who are trying to do to him what Brutus did to Julius Caesar. Yeah. And you know what that was. Stab him in the back. And I believe that there is a move afoot in these last 32 days left in this election to actually do that within the party to the nominee of the party. And I think it is a shame that those who would actually be in this party, leave the party, go be something else, but at least play by your own rules. I'm going to have on the show with me next week the son of Saul Alinsky. His name is David Alinsky. And it's going to be very, very interesting show. I'll be announcing it starting Monday. Michelle is out today doing her Michelle thing, but she'll be out on. We'll be back with you on Monday, And I'm going to have the son of Saul Alinsky next week on the show. His name is David Alinsky. And I'm going to have Ralph Bramco on with him as well. Both of them are Jewish, but David Alinsky is like his father, but not like his father. He is, in fact, someone who understands how to fight this fight, and is, in fact, saying that we as conservatives had better learn how to fight this fight and what we are up against. David Alinsky, the son of Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals, who was the who Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama are disciples of. His son, David Alinsky, will be on with me next week. And those are the caliber of guests going forward, both now, before, and after the election, that we're going to be talking to and with. Because there are some serious moves. Think about it, folks. If, and really I mean this, for God forbid, that the country shifts even more to progressive liberalism and socialism in this country and away from Judeo-Christian ethics, then there are serious moves that conservatives and people of conscience will have to consider. Stacy on the right will be with me after the top of the hour. I'm CL.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show. I am C.L. And I want to remind each and every one of you that starting on the 17th of this month, you'll be able to hear us, all of our friends there in North Carolina, coming out of Wilmington, North Carolina. And I certainly hope that they don't suffer any real harm from this hurricane that's coming up the coast there. But we will be broadcasting from 1180 a.m. there in Wilmington. Joining me now is Stacy on the right, Stacy Washington, who has a new daily talk show there in St. Louis, Missouri. Stacy on the right. And Stacy, I want you to tell us the times and how we can listen to your new show.
Hey, CL, I'm so happy to share with you. I feel like, whoa, I don't know what to do, but okay, it's Urban Family Talk, and we are on in six states. And it's Christian radio, but you know me.
Yeah.
It's not about labels and things like that. It's more about getting the truth out there. So it's pretty much the same program that I've had for the past 3 years on Sunday night for 2 hours, only now it's 1 hour a day at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 5 days a week. And it's just, we've been talking politics and culture and marriage and family and lifestyles and all that stuff. I've interviewed Kira Davis of Red State and Paris Denard of the RNC and formerly of the White House, and Stephen Bucci of the Heritage Foundation. We've been asking everyone to come on. I hope that you'll be able to squeeze me into your schedule to come on my program and speak to my listeners.
You know I will. You know I will, Stacy.
I would love to be able to interview you. So, that's what I'm doing now, and I'm just so grateful to get to do it. It's really been fantastic so far.
And also, Stacy is a member of the Project 21 National Advisory Council and the National Center for Public Policy Research. And I'm really glad to have her as a regular on our show and list her among friends. Now, Stacy, we have this going on in our country. We got the big dogs coming out as a voice for Hillary around the country, and some of them I feel are hypocritical, and especially Michelle Obama. When you think about back in 2008, you do recall how Michelle Obama spoke of Hillary Clinton back in 2008. Can you share with our audience how that went down?
Okay, so back in 2008, remember, this is the Michelle Obama before she's in the White House. Her husband's running for the presidency. He's in the fight of his life against not just Hillary Clinton, but the Clinton juggernaut, which at that point in our history was the strongest political machine in the country. It still is one of the strongest in the country. And so here's Senator Obama coming up, one term barely under his belt, a very strong network in Chicago, but certainly not the nationwide connections. And so he sends his surrogate, his best voice, Michelle Obama, out there. And she's talking about Hillary Clinton and saying, if we want to look at who we're going to elect to be the next president, we want to elect someone who can control their own house if we're going to let them control the White House.
Wow.
And I mean, that's quite an insult, don't you
Well,
think?
it was a slap down. I mean, it really was. I mean, that's as bad a slap down as you gave. But anyway.
I'm saying it was pretty rough. I mean,
that was rough.
That's serious. That's not your little, smack on the hand. That's hands are clenched. That's punching hard.
This Sunday night, Stacy, almost called you Hillary, girl. But this Sunday night, how strong does Trump has to show up strong this Sunday night, right? And let me ask you, how do you think Pence did as well?
Okay, well, first off with Pence, I think he did fantastic. I love the way he rose above and didn't stoop down to the insults that Tim Kaine hurled at him. And I have a piece on StacyOnTheRight.com. It's like an expose by Babette Holder, and it talks about all of the things about Tim Kaine that we don't know. Mm-hmm. A lot of people just don't know who he is. He is a Clinton-esque attack dog, and he showed his teeth the entire debate. He really made a fool out of himself. And I think Governor Pence, he had a decision to make, and it was one of those split-second decisions because I'm sure he didn't expect Tim Kaine to behave that way.
Right.
He decided, instead of validating the lies that Tim Kaine was telling when he said that Donald Trump said, all women are fat,
Right.
all women are, pigs. Trump never said those things.
No.
He was speaking specifically to women who had insulted him, and he was responding back. He wasn't running for the presidency when he said those things. He was in reality television.
Right.
And so it was a different time for him, and he's not a politician. But instead of Pence trying to explain all of that, he knew he'd be overrun. He simply chose to deal with the issues that he was there to talk about, budget, policy, foreign policy, immigration. He really hammered those things home, and he did it so well that the Democrats actually spent a lot of time commending him and saying how they wished he was running for president, which is a fantastic endorsement, not just for Pence, but for Trump, because Trump chose Pence to be his running mate.
That's exactly right. Let me ask you this now. Then, what do you think of people like the Bushes and the Boehners, and even in the closet, Paul Ryan, actually wanting to play for 2020 and run somebody like Pence against Trump? The word on the street is in D.C. I just came back from Wilmington, North Carolina, and they were a lot of the Republicans up there. I'm talking about stalwart. Used to be. Republicans are saying, "Hey, look, let Hillary have this 4 years, and let's run Pence in 2020." I'm not on that train, Stacey, but what do you think about it?
Oh, my gosh, CL. Okay, so first of all, there is no letting Hillary Clinton have anything. That's like saying, I think I'm going to let the devil have,
Right.
want my dog.
Right.
You don't let the devil have anything. That's when you're out of your league. That's
Right.
why, we're not supposed to go up against the devil by ourselves, okay? So
Right.
let's bring it out of that arena. You don't say to your enemy, who's stronger than you are, more cunning than you are, more efficient than you are, you're going to let them have 4 years. In 4 years, Hillary will have ground America down into a fine dust.
Yes, ma'am.
Be blowing in the wind. There's no, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And the reason I think that they are so afraid of Donald Trump is that he will destroy the consultant class and the inbred systems that are set up right now in D.C. that enrich everyone. It doesn't just enrich Democrats or Republicans. It enriches them all. They're all in on it together. And the ones who are quaking in their boots are the ones who have the most to lose. They have the most money on the line, the most power, and the most influence. And Donald Trump, I don't think he's going to be able to get everything done, but he is that ticking time bomb. He's that the grenade that you toss in before you go raid a building if you're in the military.
Yeah.
He's going to blow everything up.
And let me remind everybody, Stacey is that military person, and thank you and your husband for y'all's service to our nation. When I return, I want to talk to you, Stacey. There is a Duke University study that's coming about, and it's called Deconstructing Masculinity. And I want to talk about, they're actually talking about male privilege and sidling alongside white privilege and all that type thing. They're saying that masculinity in this country is becoming toxic, and they have to neuter it. And Stacey, I want to talk to you not only as a friend, but I want to talk, this conversation I want to have as male and female, because I feel there is an attack on the definition of our humanity, what it is to be human, when you start attacking the genders in the way that we're seeing it. I'm CL. I'll be back with Stacey Washington, Stacey on the right, when we return. CL. Back with Stacy on the right, Stacy Washington, and I am privileged to have her on with me. And Stacy, give us the call letters and the website where people can go and hear your new daily show emanating from St. Louis. Tell us, Stacy.
Well, it's urbanfamilytalk.com, and the stations are actually in Norwood, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and then also Boise, Idaho, and Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Madison, Mississippi, Cleveland, Mississippi, Tupelo, Mississippi, and Rossford/Toledo, Ohio.
All the best to you, and the website.
urbanfamilytalk.com, and you can go to stacyontheright.com. I'm still doing my Sunday night show out of here in St. Louis on 97.1 FM News Talk. So, yeah, I'm 6 days of radio a week, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, you're going to love it because you get a chance to express yourself in these troubled times. Now, Stacy, there in Duke U, there is a project going on that would like to neuter the toxic masculinity that they claim causes so much of the violence in this country. My question for you to expound on and of course deal with here in this conversation is there a now overt attempt to feminize the male population in this? We've seen the covert attempt, but now it is out of. What do you think about it? Is that happening?
Yes, CL, it is. And I think when we're going into the break, you said you wanted to have the conversation from the male-female perspective, and that really is how this conversation has to be had, because there are two genders. They are unique, they are distinct, and they're complementary, and there's a reason for it. So when we see this push to eliminate gender, to demasculinize men, it's really an attempt to eliminate the complementary nature of the relationship between men and women and to make men and women interchangeable. And this is physiologically false, it's psychologically false, and especially it's false in the whole schema of the course of history, and especially here in America. We need masculine men and feminine women and everything in between. And the reason for that is because there's a space for all of that in our country and within our human experience. I'm not a big proponent of homosexuality or transgender or any of those things that dull and neuter the abilities of men and women. And I have a great respect for masculine men and what they're able to accomplish, because masculine men make war. They're fantastic leaders. They're able to think in a linear way without all of the attendant emotions that tend to be a part of the female psyche. They're able to get past that to do things that women aren't as strong at, like making war.
Yeah.
I know in the movies they show women jumping on men's necks and twisting them to the ground and all that stuff, but in reality, women have less muscle mass and are not as able to withstand the rigors of wartime operations. And the reason I keep bringing up war, besides the fact that I'm an Air Force veteran, is because war is a reality of being a human being on a planet where different ethnicities and languages are spoken.
Amen.
We have to have someone, CL, who's able to think in a warlike posture. This is a natural bent for men. It can be learned by women. It can be done by women, but it is most effectively done by men.
Absolutely.
And the nurturing of the family, right? CL, we have all of these things that women can do. Women are natural leaders. They're very organizationally minded and also have an innate ability to solve problems from an emotional perspective without losing control. So women have innate pluses and positives.
Absolutely. And you know what, Stacy? You bring up something very interesting that I want to coattail on. Every man, every woman, at one time or another was led by a woman, because in the natural course of things, all of us have mothers. In the natural course of things, every man, I don't care if he turns out to be King David, a great warrior, Achilles, whoever he was, he had a mother who at one time led him in one way or another. That is what so many people forget and miss when it comes to the strength and the wisdom of our Creator, is that he gave you that woman in the very beginning to lead and nurture you. I even have to look at Jesus there when he performed his first miracle, turning the water into wine. It was Mary who said, "Hey, look, they're out of wine." So you could tell that she had this influence on him all of his life.
Solve this problem. We
Yeah.
have a problem.
Yeah, and so I like what you had to say about being the man, the thing about men. And when I look into the home, Stacey, I want you to talk about this too. There is the influence of estrogen, and then there's the influence of testosterone, and both of them are equally needed in order to create some type of balance. My son, as manly man as he is, he loves his mother. I mean, he just absolutely, he's our only son, and I understand the relationship and everything, but as manly as he is, hunts, fish, has family of his own now. But when he's around his mother, I can see that little boy again. It's amazing. And I think too many homes are missing that.
And also, CL, it's an amazing dichotomy. And we had it was a pivotal moment in my being a mother. I was a young mom. We had 3 kids at the time, and the youngest was a baby, and Miles was 2, I think. And we had a couples ministry from church at our home we were hosting, and an older couple that we really loved, the husband was complimenting me on our home and said, "Listen, I know you're such a stay-at-home mom and you're so involved with the kids, but remember, your son is 2, and at some point in the next 12 months or so, you need to relinquish that complete control and start to point him and yield him over to your husband, because only your husband can teach him how to be a man." And I said, "Well, he's still a baby." He said, "Once he turns around, 3 years old, he's going to decide which of the 2 of you he wants to be most like, and you want that to be your husband."
Yep.
And I remember that night I felt it was almost like he told me, "Well, you got to, let go of your son." And I thought to myself, that can't be what he meant. And so I just thought about it, and over time I came to realize, he was so dead on. It was such a wonderful thing for him to share with me, really a showing of how much he cared. And I read the book Bringing Up Boys by Dr. James Dobson, and it just cemented in my mind. And so did I stop caring for my son? No, I was still there all day with him when he, until he was in kindergarten and beyond.
Right.
I was the person who spent the most hours with him. But when it came to these things, when I began to point him towards his father, it was so natural the way he just immediately began to do. He would stand like his dad. If his dad kept his hands in his pockets, he would do it too. And it was just the little things, but it was also the deeper things that they began to share. When I pulled back a little, my husband was able to rush in. And you can't do that if you don't know what you're doing, if you don't realize that you as a mom need to pull back with your son,
Yeah.
that your husband needs to rush in a little bit.
Yeah.
It can't happen. And so we're seeing more of these children raised in these homes where the mom is everything. She's the breadwinner. She's the smartest person. She does all the cooking and the cleaning. She also cuts all the wood and fixes the car. This is not the way it was meant to be.
Stacey, I got to leave it right there. StaceyOnTheRight.com. Thank you so much for being with me. Talk to you soon. I'm CL. CL, back with you on this Thursday evening here in the jeweled cities of the Arklatex. And, you know, Stacy Washington was just on with me here. Stacy on the Right, StacyOnTheRight.com is how you find her. And, I mean, she's doing it. I mean, she's really doing it. She's beginning to expand. All of us are beginning to blow up and do our thing respectively. By the way, I'll be up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin next week on the 11th. The Constitutional Revival Tour will continue there. We were in West Palm just a couple of weeks ago. We'll be in Milwaukee next week. And then we'll be in Pittsburgh. Well, I'll be in Pittsburgh on the 15th with the Constitutional Revival Tour. And we'll be looking to solidify our move into Pittsburgh on radio as well. And so need your prayers and all of that, because these are indeed trying times and perilous times for each and every one of us who are citizens of this great nation. It is time of decision. It's time for us to choose. Oh yeah, it's time to choose. There's no such thing as staying home now. You're gonna have to choose. And folks, if you're talking about, well, you know, I'll be choosing between the lesser of two evils, no, you won't. Well, yes, you will, because Jesus Christ is not on the ballot. And when he's not on the ballot, you're always choosing between the lesser of two evils. You just think about it. If you're choosing a man or a woman to lead you, there is something flawed about that person, period. So forget the sinless ticket. There is none unless Jesus Christ himself is on the ballot. There's no sinless ticket. So you just might as well get your so-called conservative self out there and vote for, go ahead and vote for the lesser of two evils, and you know who that is. It ain't Hillary. And it ain't Gary Johnson. And whoever else that might be out there with whatever. But the best thing that we can do for ourselves is make sure that we have somebody in that chair who we have a chance of influencing, because we put him there. And believe me, if Donald Trump gets there, it's going to be you and me who put him there. It won't be just because he cannot win without you. Listen, he cannot win without you. They're always saying that Pennsylvania is out of reach for him. And Missouri, I think it was Missouri, is out of reach for him. Missouri and Pennsylvania are out of reach for him. Now, that's those pundits who would like you to believe that. That doesn't necessarily have to be so. But that's what they're wanting to say. Now, I got a lot to talk to you about. If you want to call, 320-5335, 318-320-5335 is the number to call. I'll take a couple of calls if I can get to them. But there's a lot that I want to talk to you about, because in this next 30 days, it's going to be pedal to the metal to see what we can do to make certain that America does not fall further into the grips of progressive liberalism. Folks, you have not seen anything yet as far as Obamacare is concerned. Oh, yeah, affordable health care. Yeah, that ain't working out for you. It is not going to work out for you at all. It's not going to work out for you at all. You ain't seen nothing yet. You wait till 2017 gets here. And those of you who are crying and complaining about the premium increase as far as your insurance is concerned and the deductibles and all that kind of stuff, that as far as insurance is concerned, you just wait. You don't have to hide and watch. You just wait, because you just continue to live. And I assure you, crying time again is a coming. And so, father figure. We were talking about that. We were talking about there's a Duke University study that's out there to try and deconstruct masculinity, because they're now wanting to blame the evils of our society on masculinity. And of course, they're going to couple white privilege along with that, and then all the other foolishness that goes along with that as well. And in the midst of all of this, you have civil unrest on the street every time, in most cases, someone who is breaking the law gets themselves shot. Now, believe me, I am all in favor of running and throwing the book at anybody, cop, soldier, Indian chief, civilian, who takes innocent life. But you know as well as I do that a lot of this stuff is just abject foolishness. And a society that loses law and order is lost, period. Now, when we get to this point about talking about deconstructing masculinity, it's a toxic, masculinity is toxic. When we get to that point of talking about that, then we start talking about the very building blocks of humanity. Now, I know, and it's obvious, that if it was just left, it was just me and guys like Jay and men like us. We're old boys who like sports. We like football. We're just guys. Okay. Now, if you just put us on an island, Lord of the Flies, we'd kill each other. Why? If it was just guys. Why? Because we'd be trying to find out where the women are. That's what men do. Men are not really sane unless there is that balancing act of femininity in their lives. We don't know how to live with them, but we certainly don't want to live without them if you're a man's man. Men, can I get an amen? We don't know. We don't, yeah, of course we all have mothers. And in the natural course of things, mom and dad were together. And I certainly hope that's the situation. But if it wasn't, you still didn't understand mom the way you'd understand your dad. You wouldn't. Even though my son, he's definitely his mother's son as far as loyalty is concerned. But when he wants advice on being a father, on what he should do as a man, guess who he comes to? Comes to dad. I'll be right back.
But that was all he missed. And he ain't come.
CL, back with you on this Thursday. And folks, what I was saying is this, and understand me. I don't want you to misunderstand what I'm saying. I am not in any way belittling mamas out there who, by necessity, have to raise your children, boy or girl. What I am saying, though, is it's a poor son who doesn't love his mama.
Bill again if you want it.
It's a poor son who doesn't love his mama. I'll take a few calls. In fact, we have a regular caller. His name's Bill. Bill, I want to thank you for listening. Thank you for calling. What's on your mind, friend?
Well, I just got two quick things to say real quick. I'm glad you're no football fan no more, CL. LSU, I will fire that coach 3 years ago when they lost the national championship.
They should have did it.
I got my absentee ballot in the mail Monday,
Yeah.
and don't you know, 13 different people that's running for president of the United States, and 4 of them is socialist parties.
Yeah. Yeah. I've seen that ballot, Bill. And this is what concerns me about that ballot, Bill, because people are so confused about the issues and what's at stake in this 2016 election, Bill. You're going to have a lot of people dilute their vote and vote for one of those down-line presidential candidates. They're not going to vote for Trump. They're not going to vote for Hillary.
We also got 6 amendments that I didn't know anything about. I said, you got 4 minutes in a voting booth, right?
Right.
It ain't no way somebody, simple man like me, to go in a voting booth and read all those amendments on that thing.
And so you're going to be voting for stuff you have not a clue. But I tell you what, now, you take your time while you got the time right now. You take your time and look them over so that Bill will go in there knowing what's going on and explain to as many as you can, Bill, what it is.
Before the 6th of November, on one of your shows, will you please have somebody on that kind of go through those amendments?
I will do it. I will certainly do it. In fact, I'll make a note here to Michelle to let us get on someone nationally who can make us understand both locally and nationally what will be on the election ballot before November 6th, Bill, before the cutoff date is.
I appreciate that, CEO, and keep up the good work.
God bless and keep you, man. Thank you so much.
Bye.
You know what, folks? He's absolutely right. There are things that's going to be on that ballot, and hey, let me tell you something. The socialist candidates that's on the presidential ballot, I'm very concerned. All of that is being soaked in there. They're being salted in, as the old saying usually is, as it has been said, they're being salted in there so that people will look and say, oh, I'm going to vote for this guy. I'm not going to vote for Hillary. I'm not going to vote for Trump. I'm going to vote for this guy here. You don't know anything about that guy. And I have a feeling that that Gary Johnson fellow, he's going to siphon off a lot of votes that could probably go to Donald Trump as well, because a lot of Bernie supporters who would have, and it still amazes me how anybody who would have voted for a socialist would vote for Trump, but I still want their vote. Yeah, I want their vote. Trump should want their vote. He does want their vote. He's trying to get their vote. And but Bernie is throwing that vote to Hillary. These are very perilous times that we live in politically. And one of the reasons is what we've been talking about, folks. From the very beginning of the show, I was telling you that there is a study, and a lot of these movements that that happens across the country start on university campuses, because that is the lab, the percolator. It is the college campuses these days are test tubes for progressive liberal agendas that strengthen the socialist trend in this country. Now, next week, I'll tell you again, I'm going to have on the show David Alinsky. He is the son of Saul Alinsky, who wrote the book Rules for Radicals. Now, David is not like his father, but in some cases, in some ways, he is. And one of the goals that he has now is to show conservatives and the right how it is necessary to combat liberals by using their own tactics against them. And it's going to be particularly interesting if we wake up on November 9 with President Clinton again, this time in a pantsuit. This time in a pantsuit, President Clinton again, and Bill will be the first guy. I won't call him gentleman. Oh, that's what you're facing. Now, that's what you're going to have, or you can have Donald Trump and his family. Now, as far as talking about the father figure, pardon me, the father figure is missing in this country, both in the home and in the White House. Oh, yes, it is. An adult in the room. An adult in the room. Now, I understand. I know what a lot of people are saying is that Trump needs to act more like a presidential candidate on that presidential stage. Agreed. But still, you heard Stacey Washington say just a couple of blocks ago, my guest was saying that what we need is a warrior-like person who understands what it is and how it is to make war. And even, let me tell you something. We need someone who knows who knows how to pick a fight. Now, that is becoming politically incorrect with this new season that we live in. But America, if we are going to get back to the place where we need to be, there has to be some masculinity shown in our White House, and that has to be translated into our military. And if we're going to not produce a culture of weak-willed, lily-livered males who are not gender identifiable in the way that they carry themselves, we better learn how to produce men who know how to pick a fight with the enemy of the republic. That's what Duke would like to neuter out of us. They say that causes violence. No. What that does is keeps a society safe. The police are there to keep those who break the laws from causing violence. But what you are wanting to do and what we're letting society do is tie the hands of the man who bears the sword on our behalf by dumbing down and weakening our young people. I'll talk to you a little bit more about it when I return. CL. No, bullying is bad. I'm not trying to tell anybody. I got a text saying, so bullying's good, huh? That's not what I'm saying. If you think that's what I'm saying, you're missing the point. Let me clarify for you what I'm saying. Bullying is bad, but knowing how to deal with a bully is good. I want you to hear me well. There have always been and there will always be bullies. Don't you think that just because you are going to teach kids that there is equal outcome and all of that, and everybody sits around the table singing Kumbaya in a perfect world where nobody gets hurt or nobody takes your money and nobody. I'm going to tell you a story before we leave here today about the day I became, knew what it was to be a male. My daddy taught it to me. I'm going to tell it to you before I leave here today. And I want you to gather your young girls and young boys around the radio and hear what I got to tell them about the day I knew what it was to be the gender that I am and why that's important for both the girls and the boys to hear. Because I have taught my girls as well as my son how to deal with bullies. Bullying is bad, but knowing how to deal with a bully, if you don't teach your kids how to do that, you are doing them a disservice. Because in this world where you think that, well, the politically correct progressive liberals are trying to dumb down and take that out of society so that your kids can have a safe space on college campuses, only makes the society weaker. Because now you have people who don't know how to deal with ISIS and Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-il, because they're not on the progressive liberal college campuses. And they hate us. And once they figure out that America has gotten to a point where there are a bunch of weak-willed and lily-livered people who will let bullies push them around because it's not good to hit back, we are done. So bullying is bad. And we should point to the people in this world who are bullies and then teach our young people, like we have always taught them, how to deal with that bully. And guess what? And yes, I'm about to say it. Sometimes that bully is not going to leave you alone unless you punch them in the nose, unless you bloody their nose. Stacey Washington hit it on the head. There has to be that masculine part of your country that is able to make war and make it willingly. If we take that out of ourselves, passivity invites aggression. Ronald Reagan said it very well. The only way that we can truly have peace is if we have strength. And Jesus Christ said it much better than anyone who could ever say it. You cannot take the strong man's house unless you first bind the strong man. And America, I am telling you, that there are people out there who, if we stay on the course that we're on our college campuses and the way we're teaching our kids in elementary school and in high school, if we stay on that course that we're on, a strong house like America, a strong nation like we have been, warrior type people like we have been, our house will be taken because the bullies of the world, the Putins, of the world. Yeah, the Iranians of the world, the Kim Jong-uns of the world will bind the strong man, and they will spoil his house. So yeah, bullying's bad. But knowing how to deal with a bully, that's good. That's what has kept us safe. And you have to profile in order to do that too, y'all. You better know what to look for in somebody who does not mean you well. Because do you know you have a class of kids coming along out there right now who thinks everybody's their friend? And if they think that in an evil world that we live in, and yes, it is evil in this world. Americans, if we buy into the rose-colored lens, the rose-colored glasses that is being spawned on college campuses around this country, that there has to be a safe place and that there's certain words that we should not be able to hear, shouldn't want to hear, be exposed to, that weakens our society. I'm going to tell you about the day I knew what it was to be the gender that I am. I'll be right back.
Broadcasting from the Bayou State and all around the Gulf Coast and streaming nationwide. This is the C.L. Bryant Show.
C.L. Bryant back with you on this Thursday. And before I get into the story for you, before we share with your young people the day that I knew exactly what it meant to be the gender that I am, and that is all male, I need to talk to a friend of the show, someone who's been on with us for a long time, and that is a meteorologist extraordinaire. You know him, Joe Bastardi. Welcome back to the C.L. Bryant Show.
Well, it's a pleasure to be on. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
You as well. Joe, please tell the audience from your point of view the impact that this storm, Matthew, is going to have on America. Will it take a turn? And then I want you to share with us, does this have anything to do with man-made global warming?
Well, Matthew is going to be the most devastating hurricane ever strike the area of Florida that it's headed for, and that's the central Florida Atlantic coast. Now, Florida gets a lot of major hurricanes, but that particular area doesn't get hit by hurricanes, at least directly head-on by major hurricanes, and there's a physical reason for that. Most storms are starting to move north in that particular area, and the shape of the coastline, if you have a storm that's moving north, it's because the coastline runs north-northwest, it stays off to the east. You're more likely to get hit by a major hurricane in North Carolina and New England than you are around Cape Canaveral. Now, of course, you're going to have more hurricanes in general near Cape Canaveral, but the major ones are usually the ones that come in from the east down near Miami and West Palm Beach, hitting southwest Florida or the Florida Panhandle. There's two areas in Florida where major hurricane hits are rare. One is between Apalachicola and Tampa, and the other is between about the Kennedy Space Center on up to about Savannah, Georgia. It includes that. Of course, Georgia's not in Florida. But again, there are physical reasons for that. As far as this goes, for those of you who watch what I do on weatherbell.com, if you've got it on our site, you saw that preseason hurricane forecast saying, look out, that what happened last year with Joaquin was likely a warning shot to the United States for this year. And when the El Nino came off, given the cyclical nature of the pattern in the Atlantic Ocean, you saw this happen, where you're dealing with very warm water in the Atlantic. It happened in the late 1950s. Same kind of situation. So you're not seeing anything that is different. It's a recycled event. It happens every 50 to 60 years where the Indian Ocean, the Pacific, and the Atlantic all warm up in tandem. And, of course, that affects the global temperature. And then when they cool down in tandem, that also affects the global temperature. And things are going to be they're turning around now. They're starting to turn around.
Now, Joe, is that because of our humanity and because of our activity as human beings on this globe? Is that the reason that's happening?
Well, here's the thing. You have to believe that the increase of one molecule of CO2 out of every 10,000 molecules of air over a 100-year period, which that's the fossil fuel air, that now takes over from the sun, the oceans, stochastic events, the very design of a planet which was built for conflict. The problem we have today across the board is that somehow we've got it in our heads that there should never be conflict, whether it's between you and your neighbor arguing over, the noise being too loud, or the weather, or the climate. And yet nature was designed for conflict, and man was designed for conflict, because it's only by conflict resolution that man advances, okay? So what happens is you've got a bunch of people today, and I don't know if it's their arrogance or ignorance, that believe that they literally can control the climate. And they literally, it makes no sense at all when you think about the power of the sun, that the oceans, which are in a warm cycle now, have 1,000 times the heat capacity of the air. So you're trying to tell me that a relatively small, a very small amount of a greenhouse gas, which, by the way, is not a pollutant, since, it gets frustrating because I want you to think about this, folks. You, me, animals, exhale 100 times more CO2 than we inhale. It's perfectly natural. That's the way God made it. Okay, all right. I believe strongly in our Heavenly Father.
Me too.
He also happened to decide that, well, you know what? Plants love CO2, so it creates a synergism, a natural synergism between man and plants, where man or animal life exhales the CO2, and this is wonderful fertilizer, and that's why the planet is greener than we've ever seen in the satellite era. Nobody wants to talk about that. The point of the matter is, when you stand back, you look at the big ticket items of the weather and climate, and it's foolishness, in my opinion, to believe it's a climate control knob. Now, does it have something to do? The fact of the matter is, the so-called greenhouse gases, I don't call it greenhouse gases, I call it the wonderful blanket, the blanket of gases that are near the surface of the Earth. They add 33 degrees Celsius to the planetary temperature. Without them, life doesn't survive on the planet. All right,
Joe. This is what This is what I'm gonna have to do, because I was hoping that you would have come on earlier. This is what I want to do. I want to continue this discussion. Can you cut out next week? I want you to cut out next week at least 30 minutes to come on with me, because I want to continue this conversation. Weatherbell.com. Joe Bastardi. Listen, man, we love you on this show. Got to have you back the first of next week. Joe Bastardi. Can you do it?
Yes, sir. God bless you.
God bless and keep you. I'm CL. We'll be back.
Nobody's waiting by your side.
The time was the mid-60s when a dollar was just about a dollar. And folks work hard for their money. And things that cost a whole lot of money today, they cost a whole lot of money then, but it wouldn't seem like a whole lot of money if you were to put a price tag on it. Put their price tag on today's merchandise. So you put mid-1960s price tags on bicycles. You could buy 10 of them, 4 or 5 of them for what you pay for one today. I want to tell you a story about the day that I knew what it meant to be the gender that I am. My dad, it was right after Christmas. It was a Sunday afternoon. Never will forget it. My dad had bought me a bicycle for Christmas. He'd bought it from a lot of you who grew up here in Shreveport. You remember when Firestone was down, I think it was on Marshall Street, downtown there, near the viaduct down there. Firestone was down there. Sold bicycles. My dad had a good relationship with them down there. Bought me a bicycle for Christmas. And that Sunday afternoon, after we got home from church, a couple of days after Christmas, I was out riding my bicycle up around Booker, Washington. There used to be a park down below the hill there at Booker T. Washington. Those of you who used to travel up and down Milam Street, many of you do. You remember there was a park down there. There's a fire station, and there was a hill down there. There used to be a park down there. I was down there, up there, riding my bicycle up and down that steep slope and all this running around. Anyway, some bullies. I was telling you about bullies. I said bullies is bad, but knowing how to deal with bullies is good. Bullies are bad, but knowing how to deal with bullies is good. Anyway, I was about 7 years old, maybe 8. Bullies came along on that beautiful Sunday evening. Kind of crisp, but it was beautiful, riding my bike. One bully bigger than me knocked me off my bike, took it. I got up, the other bully shoved me back down. He rode off. The other guy who took it rode off on it. I knew him. What I do, I got up, ran home, which wasn't too far up the street, Milam Street, going up toward Cross Lake, Cross Hearn, going west, directly into the sun. Milam Street runs. My house was right before Juella ends. Not far before Juella begins and Milam Street ends. Went home. My dad was there because it was Sunday. Didn't work on Sundays. Told him what had happened. I told him what had happened. He asked me, did I know him? Where do they live? Yeah, I knew him. Knew where they live. Okay, get in the car. We're going to go get your bike. Okay? Dad drove me around the corner, not far from where we lived, and I saw my bike in the bully's yard. Dad circled the block, and he parked almost a block from where the bully lived, and he says, there's your bike. Get out of the car. Go get it. I looked at him as he looked at me. And I can tell you this. I knew that bully was bigger than me, but I was much more respectful of my dad than I was afraid of that bully. So I did what Dad said do. I marched my way off toward the bully's house. They saw me coming, and the guy who knocked me off, the one who was bigger than me, met me as I put my hand on my bike. He didn't know my dad was sitting there. And I knew what I had to do. I had to get my bike. And so we got into one heck of a scuffle. Yeah, he got pretty much the best of me. But I tell you what, I gave as good as I got, and I rode off on my bike. Dad never got out of the car. So I rode the few blocks back around the corner to our house, got off the bike, and I actually asked my father. We had this kind of relationship. His mom was just about ready for us to sit down to supper. I said, Dad, I thought you was going to get it for me. He said, no. I bought that bike for you and I gave it to you. And then he said these words. And he says, I always want you to be man enough not to let anyone take from you what I have worked to provide for you. Here it is 50 years later. But that lesson I learned about standing up to bullies, not being one, but how to deal with one, has never left me. And that's something we better not let leave our kids if we want to maintain this republic. I'll be back.
It's crazy about Elvis, loves horses, and her boyfriend too.
CL, back with you. This whole day has been talking to you about the demasculization of America. They don't want Donald Trump to be president of the United States because I really feel as though he projects too much testosterone. Yeah. Not that estrogen is bad. Don't misunderstand me. But Stacey Washington was on a little bit earlier, and she said it right. It is the masculinity of America that's under attack here, and that is true. Especially when you look at this Duke University probe that's saying that the masculinity of America needs to be neutered because it takes away the violence in our society. Don't let your children buy into that, because we were created male and female with individual traits that go along with it. I have 3 daughters and I have a son. And man, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you that there is a huge difference in the way they think. Raised by the same parents, eat at the same table, boys and girls just approach things differently, and that is good. And, of course, there are bullies in the world. And bullies are bad. But knowing how to deal with bullies is good. Because if you don't know how, they'll bully you into believing that you're causing the hurricanes that are sweeping through the oceans of the world, the typhoons. You need to teach your kids how to deal with these perilous issues that we face. Don't pacify them by saying that everything's going to be okay because you yield to those and you live and let live. And yes, in a larger sense, maybe you should. But there are times when you have to stand up to those whose very existence would threaten yours. You have to deal with bullies. And then, my friends, you have to tell your kids when they learn the lessons how proud you are of them. That they identified with what they were made with, their maleness or their femininity, to stand up for what they believe. I want to thank God for bringing us to the close of yet another day, and I want to thank Him for our men and women in uniform for defending our right to speak their mind, speak our minds. And until I talk to you again, I'm CL. May God bless and keep you all.
And to the families left behind, we'll stand by your side, and the bond will never be torn. For those who wear the uniform,